Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So, I've seen so many people on the left coping about the Senate. They're saying Democrats are favored to hold the Senate. They're guaranteed, I've even seen. They're on track to win the Senate. I've seen a lot of different people make this claim on Twitter, on YouTube, etc. But the bottom line remains the same. Democrats are not holding the Senate. And this is very true. Looking at the map, looking at the math, it just isn't there. The justification for why Republicans will actually fall short this time doesn't really seem to add up. And in this video, I wanted to explain why it doesn't exactly add up. And there we go. Because Republicans out of the gate are starting with 49 Senate seats, and it doesn't seem like they're going to lose Tennessee or Missouri or one of these deep red states that Trump's going to win by like 20 points or more. So on top of that, the only remotely competitive states that aren't even that competitive that have Republican senators are Texas and Florida. And while I think that you could say, oh, they could be within 10, fine, they're probably not even going to be within 5, and they're not flipping. West Virginia, on the other hand, Manchin's retiring. Trump's going to win the state by 40. Democrats really don't have a candidate. They might even put up Don Blankenship of all people. That'd be interesting, but it's still an auto flip. That gives Republicans 50 Senate seats out of the gate. So if Trump wins the presidency, Trump will have a Republican Senate and his VP would break the ties because it would be 50-50. So past that point, now you have to understand that there's so many pickup opportunities. Some are going to be more likely than others. It's possible that it could be an underwhelming night. They only end up with like 52 Senate seats. But this notion that they can't pick up one Senate seat past that point is absolutely absurd. Let's look at Montana. In 2018, Trump was not on the ballot. The electorate that turned out skewed more Democratic than Montana as a whole, and Jon Tester beat the underfunded and kind of neglected Matt Rosendale by, 3 to 4 points. And that was with Rosendale being seen as like an afterthought. Republicans were focusing on Florida, Missouri, North Dakota, even having to defend Tennessee, you name it. But still, Tester, in a blue wave environment, barely got by. Trump's on the ballot this time. If 2018's election happened with Trump on the ballot, Tester would have gone down probably by the mid to high single digits, and that we know. So then they say, well, Tester has money. Well, money matters a little bit less in presidential years, and that we know. Look at Hillary Clinton with all the money that she had, even running at the top of the ticket didn't exactly help out or translate. And you look at this, Republicans are running Tim Sheehy. He's basically got the nomination now that Rosendale is not in the running. So you look at this and you go directly to the general election. Oh, but there's polls that have Tester winning this early. It's like, okay, Survey USA has been awful historically, first of all. But even then, Tester's not at 50. Then you have Emerson, where Tester leads by only 2 percentage points. And then you have another poll that has Sheehy up by 4. Here's the deal regarding early polling. In a lot of these deep red states where you have that much of a discrepancy, usually when it comes election time, people that actually turn out and vote, lower propensity voters, they typically, in deep red states or even red states, they're going to lean Republican, and that means that down ballot, they're going to vote more Republican than what the polls, especially the early polls, usually show. And that much is true. And we see the same thing with Ohio on top of that as well. Oh, Sherrod Brown's going to win. Well, Sherrod Brown faced somebody who ran an awful campaign in 2018 in Jim Renacci, and Sherrod Brown only won by 6 percentage points and a little bit of change. In 2012, he outran Obama by just 3 points against Josh Mandel of all candidates. So you're looking at the big picture here, and it's like, I cannot see Sherrod Brown winning this election. Bernie Moreno is somebody who, is he like an S-tier candidate? Well, either way, it doesn't matter because Trump's on the top of the ticket, and in the counties that Brown has used to his advantage to outrun other Democrats, counties that are moving to the right, Moreno did extremely well in them in the primary. He outperformed expectations in the primary by like 20 points. He defeated Matt Dolan, who had deep pockets, and part of that was because Trump was on the ballot. And when Trump's on the ballot, a lot of his candidates, or even just down ballot Republicans in general, typically do a hell of a lot better. And that is true. Moreno, some people said he would lose to Dolan. They'd be, knotted in the mid to high 30s together. Moreno got 50% plus in the primary. He's a stronger candidate than I think a lot of people truly acknowledge. And again, it's the same cope we see for the state of Montana, the early polls. Well, Brown's leading the polls, so Moreno's definitely in trouble. And against all the other candidates, for the most part, Brown was also leading the polls. But still, the guy's in like the mid-40s at best. And these are early polls. You look at it. Reputable pollsters still have this within, 5 points, and it's very early on. But still, the polls underestimated Moreno by like 20 in the primary. So the early polls I wouldn't read too much into, and part of it is just name recognition, and those low propensity voters that are going to turn out, they're going to vote for Trump down ballot in many cases. They're going to be voting for Moreno. It's not like he's a bad candidate who doesn't have any funding or is super controversial. And you see the same movie that we've seen so many times in the past about these Senate races. I'm not talking about competitive races in states that are competitive at the presidential level. We're talking about deep red states, or even, solid red states that vote for Trump by around 10 points or more. Down ballot races in those states, early polls have favored Dems time and time again, and it always gives Democrats false hope. It usually backfires, and you could see this here. So look at Indiana. Trump won it by 20 points in 2016. People were saying Evan Bayh and Todd Young are going to have a very competitive race, and in pretty much every early poll, every poll except for one, Bayh was leading or was tied in. On average, you look at the polls, going all the way back to the spring, Evan Bayh had a sizable lead. The final aggregate was Young by 1, and he ended up winning by like 10 points when it was all said and done. So again, that kind of shows you what happens when Trump's on the ballot compared to some of these early polls. It doesn't necessarily mean that, the early polls have to be taken as something that's 100% certainty. They don't. They really don't. And you look at this here in Ohio, in the race where Rob Portman ended up winning by like 20 points in 2016. You look at this, a lot of the polls in the spring actually had him losing. He ended up winning by 20. So it kind of shows you how the dynamic of the race plays out as these races are more nationalized, and that much is true. You could even look at 2018, for example, deep red state, a Democrat incumbent who's somewhat vulnerable. Claire McCaskill was winning most of the polls that we see here. Hawley ended up winning by, upper single digits. He won by like 6. You could see this here in Tennessee. Phil Bredesen, he went out there and he was leading the polls by up to 10 points in some instances this time 2018. What happened in the end? Oh, wait, he ended up losing by double digits to Marsha Blackburn. And you could look at this. Joe Manchin as well was up in nearly every single poll by double digits. He only beat Morrissey by around 3 percentage points when it was all said and done. Then you even have Sherrod Brown in 2018. He was polling close to a 20-point lead. He only won by 6%, and that was without Donald Trump on the ballot. And finally, you could even look to 2020, for example. You have Lindsey Graham going out there. He ended up winning by over 10 points, where many polls showed a tied race, or, a race that was very competitive with him and Jamie Harrison, who's now the DNC chairman. But even then, you could go to the 2020 Montana Senate race, and you could see the same thing there too, where half the polls were won by Steve Bullock, but Steve Daines still won by 10 points because you have that top-of-the-ticket poll. And that is very much the case regarding 2024. You're seeing the same thing unfold. Yes, I expect Brown and Tester to have deep pockets. Yes, I expect that money to be essentially burned at the end of the day because they are not going to end up winning. And that doesn't take into account other potential flips too, because you have those too. And if we want to do the early polling thing, it goes both ways. You look at the early polls in Maryland, a state that Biden's probably going to win by like 30 points, and you go down to the general election. Larry Hogan, the Republican, is winning all the polls. So if you want to do the same thing, you got to do it both ways. And I think Larry Hogan's going to lose when it's all said and done. And I think that Tester and Brown are also going to lose when it's all said and done. But still, look at this map. You have Wisconsin. That's going to be competitive. Michigan. You have Pennsylvania. You have Nevada. You have Arizona. You know, all those are potential flips. Are they harder to flip? Yes. Do I expect Republicans to flip like one or two of those at least when it's all said and done? Yes, because I do think Trump will win. And we've never seen any Republican Senate candidate lose a state that Donald Trump has won on the same ballot. It's never happened before. I don't think it's going to happen in Ohio or Montana. Do I think that the streak will be broken this time around? Yeah, I do believe it will. I think Trump will win Pennsylvania as of now, and I think Bob Casey will also win Pennsylvania as of now. But still, you cannot underestimate the Trump effect, and this also goes for Senate races like Michigan, which I think are still going to be very competitive, despite the fact that Republicans haven't really won a Senate race there in quite some time, because Trump is ahead in the state of Michigan. Democrats are not running an incumbent. Republicans are running a candidate that has electoral success, at least a history of it. So at the end of the day, we will see what happens across the board. But I will say this. Democrats are delusional if they think they're going to go out there and hold the Senate. Their better bet would be the House, but even then, it's not a sure thing that that's going to flip to them either. In fact, I think it's more likely the House, despite all the chaos recently, will remain in Republican hands, especially if Donald Trump wins the election, because those down-ballot effects do matter. They absolutely do. And Republicans will win the Senate. They're not going to lose Ohio or Montana. I don't know what's going to happen past that point. We'll analyze that in the next Senate prediction, but I can just say that much. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle out.